What's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-3-4 variation. Going to be pretty useful if you are still grinding FIFA during Shapeshifters guys, but just before we get started, I would very much appreciate it if you could drop this a thumbs up. It's time for Shapeshifters, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a very nice 5% discount. Okay then guys, so starting off for the custom tactics, with the defensive style I do like to have this on balance, and the reason for this is it does give us the best control over our defense. So when we need to press, we are able to press, and then when we want to drop off, be a little bit more passive, we are also able to do that. So by having this on balanced, we do have the greatest control that the other settings do not offer us. Moving on to the defensive width guys, I do like to have this on 37. The reason for this is it gives us a primarily narrow and compact defense, which means it's going to be very difficult for our opponents to just play right through the middle and exploit that space, because our defenders will be a bit tighter, a bit closer together, and there will be less gaps. It's important not to lower the width too much though, as it is important to maintain some of the natural width to cover the wider areas in case an opponent tries an attack down the wing. So we want to be narrow but not too narrow. Now moving on to the depth guys, I have this on 58. The reason for this is I find it to be really nice and balanced. What's really good about this is the defensive line isn't too low to the point where we're always getting pinned back in our box and we're always under constant pressure, and on the flip side it's not too high to the point where we're always getting through balled and getting destroyed that way. So it's very nice and balanced, where sometimes you can sit a little bit deeper, other times you can win the ball higher up the pitch, which is really nice. Now moving on to build up play guys, I have this on balanced. The reason we have it on balanced is because balanced is by far the most varied form of build up. With balance you can play slowly, you can play quickly, you can mix it up and do a bit of both. It really allows you to pick and choose when and where you use each style of build up. This isn't really possible with the other settings as they're very restricted. For example, slow build up, you're always going to have to build up slowly. You can't just randomly decide to play a bit faster. The same way with fast build up, you can't randomly just decide to play a little bit slower. With balance though, you can really pick and choose when and where you use each style. Now moving on to chance creation guys, I like to have this on direct passing. I think this is the most important setting. The reason for this is basically with direct passing, your attacking players will like bunch up right against the opposition defenders, which makes it very easy to do the 1-versus-1 isolation plays, basically where you isolate a certain defender and take them on. It's almost like a basketball play, if that makes sense. But players also make those extra movements in the box so you can get off the extra pass to guarantee those goals, which is why direct passing is super important and probably the most useful tactic of them all. Now moving on to the width guys, I have this on 53. This is because the 4-3-3 is obviously a wide formation with the wingers, so we don't want to make it too narrow so it's like a 4-3-2-1, but at the same time we don't want to have like crazy width, because then your team is just way too spread out and linking up any play whatsoever is very difficult. So you want it to be wide but not too wide. Moving on to players in box guys, I have this on 4. This is so we can get a few players into the box for when we create those chances, but we don't overcommit everybody into the box, so if we lose the ball we won't get counter-attacked basically. As for corners and free kicks guys, I have these on 1 because there is a set piece routine that I use which requires these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen if you are interested. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, I'm just going to give some suggestions based on each position. It's not something you have to do, but a lot of people ask which types of players they should be using in each position, so I was just going to give you my basic guide for each player. But starting off with the striker guys, if you can, it's nice to get as much of a well-rounded striker as you possibly can. This is so your attack is not limited in any way. Basically, if you just use an out-and-out finisher, somebody that has like no technical ability, you're very restricted in the way that you attack, because you can only really cross to that striker and hope that they finish a chance. You can only through ball to them because they have no ability to like dribble or link up the play, which is why I suggest a nice well-rounded player so that you can really get that variety in your attack and become as unpredictable as possible. But yeah, that's what I suggest for the striker. For the wingers guys, it is pretty self-explanatory, but you want to be using the best wingers you can because these are the main outlets in the team, so it is important that these players have a lot of pace and dribbling ability and even skill moves to help with that dribbling ability, but it's also important that these players can pass and shoot as well, because it's all good them being able to dribble, but for example, if they're always butchering up that final pass, that's no good, and if they do end up in a shooting position, you still want them to be able to finish off those chances. Now, moving on to the cam guys, I suggest using somebody that is nice and creative. This is because obviously the cam is the biggest playmaker in the team, so it is important that they actually have that creative ability. You're not going to want to use somebody in a creative playmaker position that has no ability to do so, because that doesn't make much sense, but you can pretty much use whoever you are comfortable with, but I would just ensure that this player is very good at creating and even finishing off chances as well, because that is where the cam often ends up. They do often end up in those shooting positions, but yeah, just use whoever you want really. Moving on to the left centre mid guys, I like to use a more defensive minded midfielder. This is somebody that is going to stay back and be as defensive as possible, a bit like an anchor. So I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it, as you get that maximum contribution in the defence and they are not too bothered about going forward. As for the right centre mid guys, we like to go for a more box to box style midfielder. This is somebody that will attack and defend and have a bit of a free role in the team. So somebody with a high work rate is definitely preferable, as you do get that maximum contribution in both the attack and the defence, but just ensure that this player has a nice well-rounded card so that they are capable of doing a bit of everything. As for the fullbacks guys, you can use whoever you want, but what I like to do is use one more technical player in the left back position and then a more defensive player that has less technical ability in the right back position, so we have a bit of a balance between somebody that's pretty good on the ball and somebody that is nice and solid at the back. But you can use 2 attacking fullbacks or 2 defensive fullbacks if that is something that you are more comfortable with. As for the centre backs guys, these just need to be full meta players. These are obviously players that are very quick, have good physicality, decent animation choices, and a medium high work rate as well, so you do get that perfect work rate balance. But yeah, there's not too much to say about the centre backs, and as for the goalkeeper, it really doesn't matter, use whoever you want. Now for the player instructions guys, a lot of them are pretty basic, but I'll talk you through them anyway. On the striker, I like to have him on stay central and mixed attack. We have him on stay central because he is our striker, so we don't want him drifting off into those wider areas. We do want him to be in the central positions where the striker should be, which is why we do have him on that instruction. We get the most use out of him in those central areas. We also have him on mixed attack as opposed to getting behind, as like I said, it makes this player a bit more versatile. They do a lot more, make more dynamic movements, as opposed to making the same one-dimensional runs in behind all the time, which can be very predictable for your opponent. So mixed attack just allows this player to do a lot more, get more involved in the build-up, and it just makes it a bit easier and free-flowing in attack, in my opinion. Moving on to the right winger and the left winger guys, I just leave them on default settings. I did say these instructions were quite basic, but the reason I do so is because I don't really want to restrict the wingers all that much. You know, I don't want to tell them to always defend. I don't want to always tell them to stay wide or cut inside. I don't even want to tell them to always like get into the box for cross or always get in behind. I kind of want them to pick and choose when and where they do certain things. So I just feel like you get a lot more variety out of these wingers when you let them do their own thing, which is why I like to leave them alone. Moving on to the cam guys, the only instruction I have on him is get into the box for cross. This is so he isn't hesitant to get into those shooting positions in the penalty area to snatch up those chances, but other than that I leave him alone because I don't really want to restrict him all that much either. For the left centre mid guys, the more defensive minded player, we have him on stay back and cover centre. We have him on stay back because obviously he is a more defensive minded midfielder, so we don't want him flying forward obviously, and then we also have him on cover centre, so he does defend those central areas. As for the right centre mid guys, the more box to box style player, we have him on the default settings and cover centre. This is kind of like a lot of the players in this team. We don't really want to restrict him all that much. He has a bit of a free role. We kind of want to let him do his own thing and let his work rates carry him. The only important thing is that we have him on cover centre, so he does defend those central areas. As for the right back and the left back guys, I just have them on stay back while attacking. The reason I do this is because I want my back four to be intact at all times. I don't always want these players bombing forward and leaving spaces so we get through ball down the wing all the time. You can pick and choose when you attack with these fullbacks by using the D-pad settings to switch on and off the attacking fullback. So when you want to attack with them, you'll just use the D-pad bad tactic to send them forward, and when you want them to defend, you can just turn it back off. But yeah, as for the centre backs and the keeper, guys, these are on the default settings and I don't touch them. But yeah, they are my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-3. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop this a like, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.